who said she hoped that her father would never be forgotten, and he absolutely will not. The protests in the streets helped the momentum for change within the House of Representatives, and I stand here today, it's an honor to be here with the family, but I stand here to renew the commitment that we will get this bill on President Biden's desk. We will get this bill on the desk, and what is important is that when it reaches President Biden's desk, that it's a substantive piece of legislation, and that is far more important than a specific date. We will work until we get the job done. It will be passed in a bipartisan manner. And so that is a commitment that we are making, I'm making personally to the family, and with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Floyd's brother, Louis Floyd.
I want to thank y'all for inviting us here, the family. We're excited to be here, but this is the 1 year remembrance of my brother George. And today is the day that he set the world in a rage. And people realize what's going on in America, and we all said enough is enough. We need to be able to set standard procedures in place, just like we need meaningful legislation when they signed that George Floyd Policing Act. We need it on Biden's desk. The Senate, we need to get this taken care of. Because just like Gianna said, your dad is going to do it. And if y'all can see that, we as adults, we all should be able to see that. We all should be able to work together, and we need to fight one thing, and that's COVID. That's what we need to be fighting. We need to be working together to make sure that people do not live in fear in America anymore. This is the land of the free. People fight to get here. Give them that opportunity to want to come here, not stay in places where they're having trouble with that. It's a blessing. Attorney Trump, Tony Romanucci, so many people behind her, Roxy, Chris Stewart, so many people, they have stepped out and they've been working tremendously to help push the issue to get this law passed. I thank you all so much. Our family stands with you all in here today. Thank you all.
Now, the family is going to be welcomed by the President at the White House. In the meantime, they're going to the Senate side. So we want them to stay on schedule. And again, we welcome you. Next time, hopefully we can have a meal together and celebrate the passage of the bill. And that should be very soon. So thank you,
Thank you, press. We're going to exit the same way we came in, please. So press, please. We're going to exit the same door we came in. Thank you.
You want me to take my gear with me or leave it?
Let me first say who we have present. Of course, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Benjamin, Councilman Mark Levine, the Executive Director of the New York Civil Liberties Union, Donna Lieberman, pastor of Mount Nebo Baptist Church of Harlem, as well as head of Impact and a member of the National Board of National Action Network, Reverend Johnny Green, the head of, well, first he's the pastor of Bethany Baptist Church and head of Brooklyn National Action Network, and he is my personal pastor, Reverend Adolphus Lacey, pastor of First Baptist Church of East Elmhurst, Queens, and vice president of Impact, Reverend Patrick Young, pastor of the historic Cornerstone Baptist Church of Brooklyn, the Reverend Lawrence Aker, and we're joined by the Lieutenant Governor of the state, of course, the Honorable Kathleen Hochul. Is anyone I did not announce she's going to speak? Well, I can say that she's going to speak. Coming in with the customary Harlem leaders' late grand entrance is the Queen of Harlem, the President of the New York State chapter of the NAACP, Queen Hazel Dukes. And of course, our National Board Director and the President, Executive Director of the Protestant Agency of Welfare Organizations, Protestant Federation, I know I had a word, of welfare in the city, and who's been on any number of groups, and she's, as I said, member of our National Board, Jennifer Jones Austin. Let me say, a year ago today, the world stopped when they saw the film, the footage of Eric Garner in what I regard as a lynching by me. When I was called the next morning by Attorney Ben Crump, and he put me on the phone with the brother, Philonis, and they asked me to go to Minneapolis. I immediately said that the thing that had grabbed me in that tape was Eric Garner, because Eric Garner said what we saw George Floyd said, and that is that I can't breathe. Eric Garner had said it 11 times, and George Floyd 27 times. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and I said that it would be a challenge, but I'll figure out how to get there. And I called Tyler Perry, and I called Robert Smith, a billionaire black businessman, and they told me, don't worry about transporting the family or yourself, and gave us the use of private planes. Then I called Gwen Carr and asked her to go with me, and we went that Thursday and stood at the spot and held one of the first vigils. And later, of course, I did the eulogy both in Minneapolis and in Houston, Texas. But a lot of people don't know is that there were no relatives in Minneapolis. George had come to Minneapolis to get his life together. George Floyd's murder energized and ignited a movement all over the globe. All 50 states, places in Europe, places in Asia. And the thing that was extraordinary about this is that it was intergenerational and it was multiracial. And it was clearly time had come for people to stand and deal with policing. The reason it is important we understand that is this was not and is not an anti-police movement. It is a movement around police accountability. And it was for good cops not to be broad-brushed, and good citizens not to be in any way given to this kind of police excessive force, and in this case, murder. We had at no time knew when we started that there would be any indictment, less known conviction. But we went anyway and kept going and kept marching. Many of you may recall on August 28th, Martin Luther King III and I had a huge march in Washington on the anniversary of his father's I Have a Dream speech. And National Action Network was the lead organization. And we had 204,000 people come in a pandemic. And they marched. But they did not just march about how angry we were and angry we were and are. They marched around saying we want demonstration and legislation. We want to see the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act passed by the Congress. Yes. When we saw a movement like this in the 60s, it led to the Civil Rights Act of 64. You cannot have a movement that is of any way, shape, and form progressively successful if there is no legislation. As we speak today, the Floyd family is in Washington. Yesterday, in the late afternoon, President Biden called me and we talked. He said, Al, you were there when I met with them when I was running. He met with us the day before the Houston funeral. He says, and I want to meet, check in. I want to talk to his daughter. I will never forget, I was in the room when George's daughter looked at then presidential candidate, Joe Biden, and said, my dad changed the world. And he says, I want to see her, and they're going to meet. And I told him that, again, I say the same thing I said throughout, Mr. President, we want to see legislation. We know that the president had a hard deadline of today. I told him we'd rather have hard legislation and a soft deadline than a soft piece of legislation and a hard deadline. So feel free, I told him, to quote me on that. We want something that works. And we want it from all sides. It is in the interest of all Americans that we meet the moment with real concrete legislation. Let me be also clear. Not only did we see an outpouring that was multiracial and intergenerational, unlike we'd seen on this issue, and I've been on this issue for many years, we also saw, as I sat with the family at the trial, I went to Minneapolis several times. This was the first time that I saw 10 policemen go and testify against a fellow officer, which means that even good cops understand that it's time for us to stop this. The chief of police in Minneapolis testified against Mr. Chauvin. But a conviction of Chauvin is not enough. We cannot keep going hoping we get the right evidence, hoping we get the right jury. We must have legislation that defines and refines what police excessive force is all about. And it must come from a federal level so states cannot opt out and go whichever way they want. I called the mayor and asked the mayor would he stand with us today. And we co-convene, we invite others. As we stand on this day 1 year later, this city has had to deal with this issue. And we have been able in the city and the state to have the Eric Garner law. The federal government needs to do what was done here. Make law, not make speeches, not hold press conferences. Federal government needs to do what we did, make law. It is against the law to do a chokehold now in the city and state of New York. And it must be against the law to do the things that are outlined in the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. So I'm going to ask the mayor, who agreed to co-convene this with me, to have some remarks. Then, as we want to dramatize to the world the insensitivity and outright total lack of any concern that this officer had, he put his knee on the neck of George Floyd for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. We are going to bow on our knee here for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. I want you, when I did the first eulogy, I talked about how at that time we thought it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds. People told me just standing that long exhausted them. You've got to have a lot of disregard for the law, disregard for a human being, to have something throbbing under you that long. So this is not just theatrics. This is to drive the point home that a man could put his knee on someone's neck that long, and somewhere along the way you would think he would have thought about his training. Somewhere along the way, doesn't humanity kick in and you say, wait a minute, this guy's suffering. He never in that length of time got his knee off his neck. But what he didn't know was when he put his knee on his neck, he put his knee on police brutality in this country that will never be the same again. I said to George Floyd rally in Minneapolis day before yesterday where I joined his family, that George Floyd should not just go down in history as a martyr. He should go down in history as the turning point of how we deal with policing in the United States. It was the killing of Emmett Till that drove the civil rights movement that led to 64. It was the killing of Jimmy Lee Jackson in Marion, Alabama, which is why Dr. King and John Lewis and Hosea Williams went to Selma. It is the killing of George Floyd that will change policing in the United States going forward, and we're determined to continue to do what is necessary to make that happen. I bring to you the mayor of the city of New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Rev, I want to say too many families for too many years have needed to call you. And every single time you were there. You were there for a family in pain that should not have been in pain, but you were there for a higher purpose as well. And you've been indispensable, calling this nation to justice. Thank you. And God bless you for that. We saw a murder. Let's be clear why there is so much anger, why it will not stop. We saw a murder before our eyes committed by someone who was supposed to exemplify law, who was supposed to protect. He took an innocent life, and everything that we had been told was backwards. And I understand anyone who felt betrayed in that moment. Because Rev's right. How do you forget someone's humanity? Well, because for 400 years in this country, the persistent, obsessive training was to tell white people not to value black lives. It was everywhere you turned. And it poisoned the mind to that officer. What he did disgusts me to this hour of this day. And it tells us that so much more needs to change. We cannot let our country be a lie. We cannot let our ideals be a lie. We can't show the generations coming up that everything we told them wasn't real. We, in fact, have to make it real. And we have the power to do it. For anyone who at this moment feels pain or cynicism or doubt, I understand you, but I also appeal to you to look at what this movement has done in the last year. All over this nation, laws are changing. All over this nation, police are being held accountable in ways before not imaginable because of a movement of people. But that movement cannot end. That, to me, is the message that a man who should be standing with us, should be with his family, should be alive. He's gone, but we are here. And it's our job to now finish this mission. In Washington, the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act is the least we can do to honor him. But it has to happen. It has to happen. Unless the ideal and the dream that is this nation turns out to be a lie. We can't let it be a lie. We have to call ourselves to that higher purpose and demand that our nation live up to its ideals. In this city, we know we can do better. I remember years ago on this stage when people said, you can't get rid of stop and frisk. It'll lead to disorder and crime. That was a false choice. We got rid of it, and we got safer, and we got more just. And so many times we've proven, do not accept the lie. Fight for justice, fight for change. It can be done. We can change the culture of policing. Rev said it. We saw police officers come forward with their own anger and disgust and say, that's not us, we don't accept that. So change can happen, change will happen because of us. I leave you with this. I wondered how to talk about this moment where you could be overwhelmed by pain or you could try to find a way forward. And a friend sent me this quote from Valerie Cower, and it says so much. What if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country that is waiting to be born? What if the story of our country is one long labor? What if this is our nation's great transition? Breathe. Push. We will breathe in love, through love. And my friends, we will make this a country worthy of the words it says. We will make it a country that acts in that spirit and protects all of us. That is the America we can build together. Thank you, and God bless you all.
As we begin the vow, you can take this platform, and then after you hear from Congressman Jeffries and others, I see Councilman Carnegie, if you want to join us, Stacey Lynch, if you want to join us, any that want to join in the knee bending. Those that do not want to bow for whatever reasons, that is not the story. It's not who got down. It's whether America will get up.
Amen. All right.
Amen. As we took that knee, imagine how long that was on a human being's neck. Never switched knees, just dug in. It's time we correct policing in this country. We will hear first from the fourth member of Congress in terms of fourth in line in leadership of the Democratic Caucus of the United States House of Representatives, Congressman from Brooklyn, and a member of National Action Network for many years, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton, for once again convening us. We know that Reverend Sharpton is a voice for the voiceless, a defender of the disenfranchised, and a powerful, profound, prophetic, principled preacher in the great tradition of Dr. King and Jesse Jackson. We thank you.